Volume 7, Chapter 4, Pomp and Circumstance has officially released, so let me break it down for you. So the mission is complete, and they now have a location for Amity Arena. But problems arise for Atlas as someone is going around killing public leaders outspoken against Atlas who are arrested, making it seem as though Atlas is the one killing these people off. Jean's new haircut brings out the unnecessary douche in him, but to add on to all of the problems existing in Mantle, a new problem shows up. Jacques enters the fray, kicking and mainly screaming about the problems Ironwood has caused him. From the embargo affecting his company to now seizing control over one of his dust mines, Jacques is not in the friendliest of moods right now. But also he's reunited with Weiss, and finally the Schnee Dust Company is made whole and the two squash their differences and everyone is reunited into one big happy family. I'm just kidding, their interaction has all of the makings and substance of a Twitter argument filled with terrible clapbacks and statements that shouldn't do anything but for some reason get under the skin of both people. All that's missing is some very low-res gifs of some sassy black women from terrible reality shows. Here's something I'm not optimistic about saying. Jacques does not seem like he's going to be a good character. Not in the sense that he's a hero or has good moralistic decisions, but rather he's uninteresting, one-dimensional, and there's nothing to like about him. I love siding with villains. If given the option, 9 times out of 10, I'll take more interest in them because their characters are often more entertaining and have much more depth. But Jacques is just an unlikable character. There's nothing there for me to be like, Jacques, I love his character because X, Y, or Z. And I actually think that's a problem. Because he's not a good villain right now, he's just an unlikable character. And everything about him is even more uninteresting. Like, he's easily hot-headed, he came off the plane screaming, Weiss snaps back, he screams again. He's easy to get under the skin of. He every once in a while reverts back to his businessman voice, but in all honesty, he uses that less than his screaming voice. It's hard to take him seriously as any sort of real threat. The most interesting thing about him is his authoritarian parenting, but that story's pretty much ended in Volume 4. Like, Weiss literally needs nothing from him at this point. She just feels a moralistic duty to do something about the Schnee Dust Company. Dude, and his manipulation, bringing up Weiss's mother, it was so like, it feels amateur. My man hit Weiss with a yo mama, and it worked. At least when Adam lied and manipulated, it was weaved in with actual truths that you could be on his side. Like, he was at least good with it. But I just hope that Jacques improves as a character. Like, don't get me wrong, he's been this way ever since Volume 4, but he had a very minor, not plot-driving role. His role was to be Weiss's father, primarily at their home. But now he's being placed into a greater plot point, and I hope his statement of not being the person Weiss thinks him to be is actually true. I hope he's way more complicated and smart and cunning and not Nigel Thornberry screaming fool, but only time will tell. So to add on to plans, motive has been given as to why Tyrion is killing people. They are framing Atlas and no one's the wiser. So that'll probably start a riot or two, which will bring Grimm, but I think you're gonna need a little more than a couple Grimm to deal with what is unironically the entire military force. But also RWBY can just blink them away and they'll all die, so it's a stupid plan anyway. I don't know. Also within this scene were the Aesops. With so many similarities between them and Team RWBY, surely they must all be the same and think the exact same way. That idea remains untrue as the Aesops simply consider themselves all colleagues with one another. Nothing more, nothing less. After each of Team RWBY give us a surprised Pikachu face, Weiss then later goes on to say how she considers her team a family. What was the point of this? There really wasn't one. They weren't trying to teach a lesson or give advice, it was just like, hey, you friends? No? What? Yep, okay. I think it would be extremely odd if this was meant to develop the Aesops. Like, if by the end of the season they're just like, oh, we were all friends all along. I think that would be weird. In fact, it actually made me think the opposite. The whole scene made me change my perspective on them completely, because before this, I just thought maybe Clover might be some sort of double agent. But now, I don't trust all of them. Within this episode, they draw so many parallels between the group. The strong hammer-wielding one, the emotionally dead serious one, the fast one, the one with the luck semblance. It's odd that they're calling attention to the fact that they're so similar, both in personality and combat. They're not copy and pasted personalities, no, but it's more like looking into funhouse mirror. The image is technically reflected back at you, but it's different nonetheless. And so why? Part of me thinks it may be for mentor reasons. They all have their respective ASOP, maybe they could teach him a thing or two. But that "we're not friends" statement does stand out as odd. At the end of the day, I just need to see more of Clover because he seems too fake to me. I haven't dropped the idea that I think one, if not more of them, may not be who they say they are. Anyway, now accompanied by Winter and Penny, everyone is gathered into Amity Arena as it is to be used as a base of operations from time to time, where Ironwood, only continuing to prove how more untrustworthy he is right, Ruby, gifts everyone their official Huntsman licenses. Now they can take on jobs, earn money, and give us filler episodes from time to time. In the meantime, let there be cake! But Ruby's having trouble reflecting. Getting to Atlas, getting their licenses, and lying to Ironwood clutters Ruby's mind a bit. But Crow's putting her conscience at ease. Ruby, she's nothing like Ozpin. Ozpin only trusted himself. But Ruby, she's trusted like 8 people. That makes her 8 times better than Ozpin. Way to go, Crow, you really made a good point. Ironwood, I don't know if we could trust him. Sure, Crow could probably step in and be like, I've known him longer than you've been alive, I could vouch for him. But let's not do that. Let's give Ruby like a week and a half to see what happens, huh? New weapons, Huntsman licenses, Mikasa is Sukasa. What else has he got for you, huh? How about the keys to your new car? How about your social security number, maybe? Maybe then I'll trust you if you give me those. My mind's a little bit cloudy. Maybe a new metal arm might clear up all this information I can't seem to remember. I'm going to continue to dig into Ruby until she tells the truth. Gosh dang it. And finally, Jacques has a visitor. Watts makes an appearance once more to talk politics and spout overly cliche lines that I can't believe made it into the final script.
You're supposed to be dead.
That is what I wanted people to think, you're right. What if I said you could have your cake and eat it too?
Is it shocking that Jacques is in some sort of cahoots with Watts? Not really, but to be fair, it's not a direct connection. These two weren't working together as of this episode. Watts just approached Jacques aware of his pre-existing problems, offering a solution to help. This scene is actually really interesting because Jacques' reaction isn't what you'd expect under most every circumstance. He's not completely in shock of Watts still being alive. There's the initial reaction, but afterwards, he's not scared of Watts' presence in his own home. In fact, above all else, he seems pretty comfortable given the circumstance of believing he was dead. After the initial shock of seeing who it was, he carried on as if he was in the middle of a conversation to begin with. So questions would arise, who is Watts to Jacques? Why would, even in the best case scenario, an Atlas scientist be buddy-buddy with the CEO of a dust company? You may think they were business partners, but what business is there to begin with these two? One of them is a businessman, the other, not really. There is the idea that has been floating around about these two that they might be related, but the reason that idea hasn't taken off very well is because there's not much support behind it. It's why it's an idea and not a theory. We know so little about them both that there's not much substance to anything. They both have mustaches if that's evidence for you. But given how freely Jacques talks about his plan with Watts, I don't dismiss it. It's not by any stretch of the imagination the most concrete idea. They could very easily just be like, oh, Watts invented something that Jacques used to exploit his workers and that's their connection. They could do that no problem. But until then, I'm working with what I got. Also, because of who Jacques is, who he is, he kind of has to be roped into someone else's story because Jacques, at the end of the day, does not have the ability to carry any sort of story with just him. Current day him. Like, oh my good golly gracious, do I think he can have an absolutely phenomenal backstory role. How he married into the Schnee family, the role he played to parent Winter, Weiss, and Whitley. Like, you could unironically do a whole season's worth of episodes with the Schnee family's upbringing. But that's because Jacques' role of an authoritarian parent fits his character perfectly well and it would play to his strengths in terms of his role. But running for council isn't exactly getting me from 6 to 12 if you know what I mean. Like, I've already seen this play out in real life politics with the corruption and the votes and the outspoken people being murdered. I'm not even interested in the real life. I don't need it in the fake life as well. But finally, we get to the single most important thing this entire episode, and probably the whole of this season. Whitley, my baby boy, are you good? Have they done anything to you? Have they completely ruined your character yet? Here's why I'm worried about Whitley. You see, I'm one of the few who decided to use their eyes and brain when it came to his character, who didn't immediately hate him for some stupid, unjustified reason. And I like to think I've changed the minds of many people regarding him. But while I would love nothing more than his character to not be a mini Jacques, mainly due to the fact that he's an incredibly boring one-dimensional character right now, and to see the authoritarian raisings of his father fail, I'm afraid they might overcorrect it. Whitley enters this scene looking worried and scared of disrupting his father, and this face, this emotion is something that in Volume 4 was only seen once, and it was for like 3 frames. And I'm afraid they might make Whitley overly frightened of his father. Like a beaten dog, constantly. Now I do give this scene a pass, it's not bad, don't get me wrong, not by any means. Whitley is going against a direct command of his father, which would theoretically lead to punishment. So he's a bit hesitant going in. That's all well and good and makes sense. It was just the fact that they opened with the face that hardly any viewers saw before that made me worried. But if they do make him a mini Jacques, then I think we're in store for another unhinged rant this season, so strap in!